The giant wolf never begged for mercy. He simply lay in the snow while the iron trap crushed his leg deeper into the frozen earth. Blood soaked his silver fur. His eyes were empty, not because he was dead, because someone had stolen his sight. The hunters circled him with loaded bows and cruel smiles. One of them raised an axe. Another laughed. Kill him before sunset. No one will ever know the Alpha King survived. Then a quiet voice shattered the silence. Stop! A young healer stepped out from between the pine trees, carrying nothing except a basket of winter herbs. She looked at the dying wolf. The hunters looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Do not touch him. That beast has destroyed entire kingdoms. If he stands again, you will be the first person he tears apart. She should have run. Every instinct told her to run. Instead, she walked straight toward the blind wolf. He lifted his scarred head. His empty eyes could not see her. But somehow he stopped growling the moment he heard her footsteps. The forest went completely silent. Even the wind seemed to disappear. She knelt beside the beast everyone feared. Then she did something no one had ever dared. She placed her hand on his blood-covered head. At that exact moment the wolf froze. Not from pain, from recognition. Somewhere deep inside a forgotten palace, a sacred crystal exploded without warning. Miles away, a man wearing a stolen crown dropped his cup as the sound echoed through the throne room. His face turned white. Only one person in the world could awaken that ancient bond, which meant only one thing. The blind wolf lying helpless in the snow was still alive, and the woman trying to save him had just walked into a war she did not even know existed. Because before the sun set, one impossible truth would change both of their lives forever. The monster she refused to abandon was not a monster at all. He was the Ruthless Alpha King. The giant silver wolf did not fight. He did not growl. He did not even try to escape. He simply lay in the snow while the iron trap crushed his front leg and dark blood spread across the frozen ground. His scarred face was lifted toward the gray sky, but his clouded eyes saw nothing. He was blind, completely blind. Around him stood 3 hunters with bows in their hands and cruel smiles on their faces. One of them kicked the wounded animal across the ribs and laughed as the wolf let out a low, painful breath instead of a roar. They had expected a monster. Instead, they found a king who could no longer defend himself. None of them knew that every heartbeat carrying away his strength also carried the fate of an entire kingdom. None of them knew that before the sun set, a single young woman would change the destiny of every wolf alive. The winter forest of Black Pine was feared by every village that stood near its borders. Children were warned never to enter its endless sea of dark pines. Travelers crossed themselves before passing its frozen paths. Hunters entered only in groups, and even then they never stayed after sunset. The forest had a heartbeat of its own. It whispered through ancient branches and breathed beneath layers of untouched snow. Hidden beneath its silence were forgotten ruins old enough to exist before the first Alpha King wore a crown. It was a place where secrets refused to die. Lyra Ashwood walked those woods as if they were her closest friend. Every morning, she carried a worn leather satchel across her shoulder and searched for herbs that survived beneath the snow. She knew where winter berries grew beneath frozen bushes. She knew which roots could stop poison from spreading through the blood. She knew which flowers bloomed even beneath ice because life always found a way. The villagers often called her strange because she preferred the company of trees over crowded markets. She simply smiled and continued walking her own path. Her long chestnut hair escaped beneath the hood of her green cloak, while snowflakes rested against the soft strands before melting away. Her emerald eyes remained alert as she studied every footprint pressed into the snow. Rabbits, deer, foxes, then something much larger. A wolf. No. Several wolves. Then suddenly only one. The trail became uneven. Deep marks scarred the snow as though something heavy had been dragged across the forest floor. Lyra slowed her steps. The forest felt different. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Then she heard it. A weak breath, barely louder than the whisper of falling snow. She followed the sound until the trees opened into a small clearing. Her heart stopped. The enormous silver wolf lay trapped beneath rusted iron jaws chained to a thick oak stump. His fur should have shone like moonlight, but it was stained with mud and blood. One eye had been scarred long ago, while the other was clouded white from poison. His breathing came in painful waves. Every attempt to move only drove the iron teeth deeper into his leg. Lyra had never seen such a magnificent creature, nor one so broken. She slowly stepped closer. The wolf lifted his head. Though his blind eyes could not see her, his nose twitched gently, as if searching for the scent carried on the cold wind. There was no growl, no warning, only exhaustion. Then voices echoed between the trees. "There he is. Do not let him crawl away. He is worth more dead than alive." 3 hunters emerged carrying spears and bows. Their boots crushed fresh snow as they laughed. One of them noticed Lyra. "Step away, girl." She looked back without moving. "He is dying." "That is exactly the point." Another hunter spat into the snow. "Do you even know what this beast is?" Lyra remained silent. "The monster of Moonfang. The wolf who slaughtered entire packs. The ruthless Alpha King." The words hung in the icy air. Lyra looked down at the wounded animal once more. She searched his scarred face for the monster they described. She found only pain. One hunter raised his bow. "Move aside." She did not. "He will kill you the moment he stands." "He cannot even stand now. He deserves this. No living creature deserves this." The oldest hunter shook his head. "You are a foolish girl." "Maybe." She tightened her grip around the small woodsman's axe hanging from her belt. "But I will not watch something suffer while I can stop it." Before any of them understood what she intended, she ran toward the trap. The hunters shouted. The wolf flinched. Lyra lifted the axe high above her head and brought it down with every ounce of strength she possessed. Metal screamed. The chain cracked. Again. 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 The final strike shattered the rusted hinge. The iron jaws sprang open. The wolf collapsed sideways instead of attacking. He was too weak even to rise. The hunters cursed. One charged toward her. Lyra stepped between the man and the wolf. "You will have to go through me." The hunter laughed. "You think that tiny axe will stop us?" "No," she answered quietly. "But perhaps the forest will." Almost as if the ancient woods had heard her challenge, a deep howl rolled across the mountains. Another answered. Then another. The hunters suddenly looked around. Wolves. Many wolves. Hidden beyond the trees. Watching. Waiting. No one could see them, but everyone could hear them. Fear spread across the hunters' faces. "This place is cursed. We leave now." The oldest hunter pointed at Lyra. "You have chosen the wrong side." Then they disappeared into the forest faster than they had arrived. Silence returned. Lyra slowly knelt beside the injured wolf. Blood continued flowing from the crushed leg. She removed her own wool cloak and wrapped it tightly around the wound before crushing healing herbs between her palms. "You are safe now." The wolf lowered his massive head. His breathing steadied. Carefully she touched the thick silver fur along his neck. The moment her fingers rested against him, something strange happened. A warm pulse rushed through both of them. Not painful, not frightening, ancient. The wolf froze completely. His ears lifted. His heartbeat became stronger. Deep inside a place he believed had died forever, his wolf stirred. A forgotten scent filled his mind. Home. Impossible. He knew that scent. He had searched for it years ago, before darkness stole his sight and betrayal stole his crown. But how could she carry it? Lyra noticed none of this. She simply smiled gently. "You are going to live." The wolf lowered his head onto the snow beside her boots. For the first time since losing everything, the mighty Alpha King trusted someone completely. And somewhere far beyond Black Pine Forest, inside the dark halls of Moonfang Castle, a crystal carved with the royal wolf crest suddenly shattered without warning. The man sitting upon the stolen throne slowly looked up from his golden cup. His smile disappeared. Then he whispered words that had not crossed his lips in almost a year. "Kale is still alive." Morning arrived quietly over Black Pine Forest. Thin streams of golden light slipped through the towering pine trees and painted the snow with soft colors. Smoke curled gently from the chimney of Lyra Ashwood's small wooden cabin, hidden deep among the ancient woods. From the outside it looked forgotten by the world. Inside it held something the kingdoms believed no longer existed. The true Alpha King was alive. Kale lay beside the stone fireplace, where warmth slowly chased away the deadly cold that had settled inside his body. His wounded leg had been cleaned with careful hands and wrapped with fresh bandages made from strips of old linen. The burning pain remained, but the poison no longer spread through his blood as quickly as before. His blind eyes stayed closed while he listened to every quiet sound around him. The crackling fire, the boiling pot hanging above the flames, the soft footsteps of a woman moving carefully across the wooden floor. He had spent years surrounded by soldiers who obeyed him because they feared him. He had lived inside a palace where every smile carried hidden ambition. Trust had become more dangerous than any battlefield. Yet this stranger expected nothing from him. She had risked her own life for a wounded animal everyone else wanted dead. Cal could not understand why. Lyra knelt beside him carrying a wooden bowl filled with crushed herbs mixed into a thick green paste. She smiled even though she knew he could not see it. "This may sting a little," she whispered. Her fingers gently lifted the blood-soaked bandage away from his injured leg. Cal clenched his jaw but refused to make a sound. Pain was an old companion. He had learned long ago that kings were not allowed to complain. The wound looked cleaner than before. The swelling had begun to fall. The flesh was slowly closing beneath the healing medicine. "You are stronger than I thought," she said softly. Cal lowered his head, slightly as if thanking her. She laughed quietly. "You really do understand me, do you not?" His ears twitched. For the first time in many months, something almost forgotten stirred inside his chest. Peace. Outside the cabin, the forest remained strangely silent. Normally birds welcomed the morning with cheerful songs. Today none could be heard. Even the wind moved cautiously between the trees, as though something unseen watched from the shadows. Far beyond the cabin, several dark figures studied fresh footprints pressed into the snow. The oldest hunter crouched low and touched the tracks with his rough fingers. "She brought it here." Another hunter looked toward the smoke rising through the trees. "Should we finish them both?" The old hunter shook his head. "Not yet. If that beast truly is who I think he is, then someone far more powerful will pay handsomely for this information." They quietly disappeared deeper into the forest, leaving only disturbed snow behind. Inside the cabin, Lyra knew nothing of the danger drawing closer. She poured fresh water into a wooden cup and held it carefully near the wolf. "Drink slowly." Cal lifted his nose toward the scent before carefully drinking from her hands. The simple act surprised him more than any battle he had ever survived. Once kings drank from silver goblets offered by servants. Now he accepted water from the hands of a poor healer, and somehow it carried greater dignity than any royal feast. After eating a little dried meat, Cal rested beside the fire while Lyra gathered fresh herbs into small cloth bundles. She often spoke aloud even though she expected no reply. "The village thinks I spend too much time alone." She smiled while hanging plants from the ceiling beams. "Maybe they are right. People are difficult. Trees are honest. They never pretend to be something they are not." Cal remained still but listened carefully. Every word revealed another piece of the woman who had rescued him. She carried sadness beneath her gentle voice. Not fresh sadness, old sadness, the kind that became part of someone's soul. Later that afternoon, Lyra opened a small wooden chest hidden beneath her bed. Inside rested only a few precious belongings: a faded blanket, an old silver hairpin, a leather-bound journal filled with pressed flowers, and a strange pendant shaped like a crescent moon embracing a wolf. She picked it up and frowned. "Mother always told me never to lose this." I wish she had told me why. Cal's ears suddenly lifted. Even without sight, he recognized the faint metallic scent drifting through the room. His breathing slowed. That pendant. Impossible. It belonged only to the lunar royal family. Every Alpha King since ancient times had sworn an oath before that sacred crest. How could a simple healer possess it? Before he could think further, Lyra wrapped the pendant around her neck. The instant the silver touched her skin, warmth spread quietly through the cabin. The fire burned brighter. Outside, several wolves, hidden among the trees, suddenly lifted their heads toward the cabin. Cal felt it too. A forgotten power had awakened. Not fully, only enough to whisper that destiny had begun moving once again. That night, heavy snow began falling. The forest disappeared beneath white silence. Lyra slept peacefully near the fireplace while Cal remained awake. Blindness had sharpened every other sense he possessed. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Very soft. Several people. Moving carefully. Surrounding the cabin. His muscles tensed instantly. Without making a sound, he stood despite the pain shooting through his wounded leg. His nose caught the scent. Iron. Leather. Poison. Not hunters. Soldiers. The same poison that had stolen his sight lingered faintly upon their clothing. His enemies had found him. Before Cale could warn Lyra, a tiny crack echoed beneath one of the windows. Someone had stepped on frozen branches outside. Lyra opened her eyes immediately. What was that? The wolf moved between her and the door. His thick silver body blocked the entrance completely. A deep growl rolled from his chest. It was the first growl she had ever heard from him. Not one filled with anger, one filled with warning. Lyra slowly reached for her hunting knife. She whispered quietly, "Someone is outside." The growl became louder. Then everything went silent again. No footsteps, no voices, only endless snow. Minutes passed. Neither of them moved. Finally, Lyra carefully opened the wooden door. The night looked empty. Fresh snow covered everything. She stepped outside. Cold air brushed against her face. Then she noticed something buried beneath the snow near the porch. A black feather, its tip stained with dried blood. She picked it up slowly. Her heart skipped. She had seen feathers like this only once before, on the cloaks worn by the royal guards who disappeared the night her parents died. Behind her, the giant silver wolf remained perfectly still. His blind eyes faced the darkness beyond the trees. He could hear someone breathing, watching, waiting. Hidden among the pines, a cloaked figure smiled before silently disappearing into the endless forest, carrying only one terrifying message. The lost Alpha King had finally been found. The morning after the black feather appeared outside the cabin, the forest no longer felt like a place of peace. Every sound carried hidden meaning. Every gust of wind seemed to whisper a warning. Lyra stood outside with a basket resting against her hip, while fresh snow crunched beneath her boots. She looked toward the endless trees where the mysterious visitor had vanished during the night. Whoever had come here had known exactly where to look. That thought refused to leave her mind. She turned back toward the cabin and smiled at the giant silver wolf standing near the doorway. "I have to go to the village." His ears lifted instantly. Only for a few hours, she continued with a gentle laugh. "We need flour and salt and clean cloth for your leg. I will return before sunset." The wolf took one slow step toward her. She reached out and rested her hand against the thick fur covering his neck. "You cannot follow me this time. People are already frightened enough. If they see you, everything will become worse." Cale remained motionless, but every instinct inside him rejected her decision. He could smell danger long before it arrived. The strange soldiers, the black feather, the hidden watcher in the forest. None of it felt like coincidence. Lyra looked into his blind eyes and smiled softly. "Trust me. I trusted you. Now you must trust me." Those simple words settled deep inside Cale's heart. He lowered his head. Only then did she begin walking toward the village, hidden beyond the snowy hills. Cale waited until her footsteps disappeared before quietly leaving the cabin through the back path. His injured leg still hurt with every step, but pain no longer mattered. Blindness had never stopped him from protecting those under his command, and it would not stop him now. He followed her scent from a safe distance, hidden between ancient pines where no human eyes could find him. The village of Ash Hollow slowly came alive beneath the pale winter sun. Smoke drifted above wooden rooftops, while merchants prepared their small market stalls. Children laughed as they chased each other through fresh snow. For a brief moment, everything appeared ordinary. Then the large bronze bell hanging above the village square began to ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Everyone stopped. Men and women hurried toward the center of the village. Lyra frowned. That bell only rang during important gatherings. Curiosity pulled her toward the growing crowd. At the center of the square stood Elder Bram, surrounded by several pack warriors wearing dark cloaks marked with the crest of the local alpha. Beside them stood a tall young warrior with broad shoulders and sharp blue eyes. His name was Garrick. For years the village believed Garrick and Lyra were destined for one another. Ever since childhood, people had whispered that the moon goddess would one day reveal them as fated mates. Lyra had never allowed herself to dream too much about it, but somewhere inside her heart hope had quietly taken root. Elder Bram raised his hands. "Today is the winter bonding ceremony. Today the moon goddess reveals the truth hidden inside every soul." Couples stepped forward one by one. Some smiled with joy, others cried with relief. The sacred ceremony continued until Elder Bram finally called 2 names. Lyra Ashwood, Garrick Stone. The crowd immediately began whispering. She walked forward, slowly while Garrick remained completely still. The elder placed both of their hands above the ancient moon stone resting upon a carved wooden altar. Close your eyes. Listen to your hearts. The village became silent. Snowflakes drifted gently through the cold air. For one heartbeat nothing happened. Then silver light spread across the stone. A soft warmth surrounded Lyra. She opened her eyes. A glowing mark appeared upon her wrist. The mark of a mate bond. A quiet smile touched her lips. She looked toward Garrick. His face had turned pale. His eyes widened with disbelief before hardening into something cold. Something cruel. He stepped backward. No. The single word echoed across the square. The elder frowned. What are you saying? Garrick looked directly at Lyra as if she were a stranger. I reject this bond. Gasps swept through the crowd. Lyra felt the warmth inside her chest shatter. You what? His voice became louder. I reject Lyra Ashwood as my mate before the moon goddess, and before this entire pack. The silver mark on Lyra's wrist flickered painfully. She stared at him, unable to breathe. Why? Garrick laughed bitterly. Because I will never bind my future to a woman cursed by mystery. Your parents died without explanation. No one knows your bloodline. You disappear into forbidden forests. Now strange hunters search for your cabin. You bring nothing except trouble. The whispers around them grew louder. Lyra shook her head slowly. You know that is not true. Do I? He pointed toward her. Tell everyone who your family really was. Tell us why no one remembers where you came from. Tell us why we'll never attack you. You cannot, because even you do not know. Silence swallowed the square. The people who had smiled at Lyra only moments earlier now stepped away from her. Fear spread faster than fire. One woman grabbed her child and pulled him behind her. Another whispered that the healer had always been different. Elder Bram raised his voice. Enough. The moon goddess has spoken. The bond exists whether you welcome it or not. Garrick's face twisted with pride. Then hear me clearly. I reject her forever. The glowing mark upon Lyra's wrist cracked like breaking glass. Pain exploded through her body. She dropped to one knee as tears filled her eyes. Not because she loved Garrick deeply, but because rejection by a fated mate wounded something far deeper than the heart. It wounded the soul itself. Hidden beyond the village walls, Cale heard her cry. Every muscle inside his massive body became rigid. A low growl escaped his throat. His wolf recognized the pain immediately. Someone had rejected the woman who had saved his life. Something ancient stirred inside him. Something dangerous. Back in the square, Garrick took one final step toward Lyra. You should leave this village. You never belonged here. Another voice suddenly rose from the crowd. She should be banished. Others joined in. She brought hunters here. She hides secrets. She is cursed. The frightened whispers became angry shouts. Within moments, the same villagers whose children she had healed and whose family she had protected now demanded her exile. Lyra slowly stood. Her eyes searched the faces around her. Not one offered kindness. Not one offered trust. The loneliness felt colder than the winter wind. Then a rider burst into the village on horseback. His horse stopped so suddenly that snow flew into the air. The rider carried the black crest of the royal capital. He spoke without even climbing down. By order of the crown, every village will surrender a young healer named Lyra Ashwood immediately. She is accused of aiding the escaped beast of Moonfang. Anyone protecting her will be executed for treason. The entire square fell silent. Every face turned toward Lyra. Fear became certainty. Without waiting for proof, several warriors drew their swords. Elder Bram lowered his head. I am sorry, child. The crown has spoken. Take her. 2 guards stepped forward. At that exact moment, the forest exploded with a roar so powerful that the mountains answered. The sound shook rooftops. Horses panicked. Children screamed. Before anyone could react, a gigantic silver wolf burst through the snow like a living storm. His scarred body slammed into the first guard and sent him crashing across the square. The second guard barely raised his sword before another crushing roar froze every warrior where they stood. The blind wolf stood between Lyra and the entire village. Blood stained his bandaged leg. His sight remained lost. Yet every soul present suddenly understood one terrifying truth. The monster they had hunted had not come to destroy the healer. He had come to protect her. And somewhere within the terrified crowd, one cloaked stranger quietly smiled because the trap they had carefully prepared had finally begun to close around both of them. The village square exploded into chaos. Mothers pulled their children behind overturned carts while frightened horses broke their reins and raced through the narrow streets. Men who had proudly raised their swords only moments before now stumbled backward with fear painted across their faces. The giant silver wolf stood over Lyra like an unbreakable wall. His scarred body trembled from exhaustion, and his wounded leg still bled beneath the bandages she had wrapped with her own hands. Yet there was something far more terrifying than his size. He refused to move away from her. He had chosen his place, between danger and the woman who had saved his life. Lyra slowly rose from the frozen ground. The pain left by Garrick's rejection still burned deep inside her chest, but she pushed it aside. Right now survival mattered more than heartbreak. She looked at the blind wolf and whispered softly, "You should have stayed hidden." The wolf turned his head slightly toward her voice. His ears twitched. Even without sight, he knew exactly where she stood. Another group of royal guards rushed into the square, carrying long iron spears. The captain pointed directly at the wolf. "Kill the beast, then seize the woman alive." No one moved. The captain shouted again, "Did you not hear my order?" One frightened soldier swallowed hard. "That is no ordinary wolf." The captain struck the man across the face. "Move." The soldiers finally charged together. Cale lowered his head. His breathing slowed. The years of ruling armies had taught him that fear defeated more warriors than swords ever could. He waited until the soldiers came close enough to hear their footsteps. Then he moved. His massive body burst forward like an avalanche breaking free from a mountain. The first spear shattered beneath his weight. The second soldier crashed into a wooden wagon before his weapon even touched the wolf. Another stumbled backward after meeting nothing but freezing air where the beast had stood a heartbeat earlier. Cale could not see. He did not need to. He followed breathing. Heartbeats. The scrape of boots across snow. Every movement around him painted a picture inside his mind. The captain swung his sword toward Cale's neck. The wolf twisted aside at the final instant. His shoulder slammed into the captain with crushing force. The man rolled across the ground unconscious. The remaining guards hesitated. That single moment of fear gave Lyra the chance she needed. "Run," she cried. The wolf immediately turned toward her voice. Together they raced through the narrow streets, while arrows whistled behind them. One arrow struck the snow beside Lyra. Another cut through her cloak without touching her skin. Villagers watched from windows. No one offered help. No one opened a door. Only silence followed them as they disappeared beyond the last wooden houses and entered the endless white forest once again. Behind them horns echoed across the valley. The hunt had begun. By sunset, dozens of royal trackers entered Black Pine Forest. They carried trained hunting wolves and fresh supplies. The false king wanted both fugitives alive. No one questioned why. Far ahead, Lyra struggled through deep snow while Cale remained close beside her. His injured leg slowed him more than he wished to admit. Every step reopened the healing wound, but he refused to stop. Night arrived quickly. The temperature dropped until every breath became white mist. Lyra finally noticed the blood staining the snow behind the wolf. She knelt beside him. "You pushed yourself too far." The wolf remained standing. She gently touched his wounded leg. Fresh blood covered the old bandages. "You saved me again. Now it is my turn." She searched the nearby cliffs until she noticed a narrow opening hidden beneath hanging sheets of ice. A cave, small enough to escape the wind, large enough to hide them both. Inside the cave, darkness wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. Lyra gathered dry branches left beneath the stone overhang, and soon a small fire filled the space with soft orange light. The warmth slowly chased away the bitter cold. Cale lay quietly while Lyra removed the ruined bandages. She cleaned the wound with melted snow before placing fresh herbs across the torn flesh. "You are stubborn," she whispered with a tired smile. No answer came. Only the slow rise and fall of the wolf's breathing. Outside, snow continued falling. The entrance slowly disappeared beneath fresh white drifts. For the first time since leaving the village, they were hidden from every searching eye. Lyra leaned against the cave wall. "Everything happened so quickly. Yesterday I still had a home. Today I have nothing." Her voice cracked, but no tears came. Perhaps there were none left. She looked toward the fire. I keep wondering why all of this is happening. Why was I rejected? Why is the crown hunting me? Why did you choose to protect me?" The wolf slowly lifted his head. He wished more than anything that he could answer. Instead, he quietly moved closer until his warm fur rested against her shoulder. Lyra smiled sadly. "You always know when I feel alone." She closed her eyes. Within minutes, sleep finally claimed her. Kale remained awake. His wolf sensed something unusual deep inside the cave. Not danger. Memory. A faint scent drifted through the cold air. Old stone. Ancient dust. Royal incense. Slowly he stood and followed the smell farther into the darkness. His paws touched carved stone instead of rough earth. The cave stretched much deeper than it first appeared. Although blind, he carefully explored every corner until one paw struck something flat, buried beneath centuries of dirt. He nudged it gently. Stone scraped against stone. The sound echoed through the cave. Lyra woke instantly. "What is it?" She grabbed a burning branch from the fire and hurried toward the sound. The flickering light revealed an enormous stone doorway hidden beneath tangled roots. Across its surface, ancient symbols had been carved with astonishing detail. At the center rested the same crescent wolf symbol engraved upon the pendant hanging around her neck. Lyra froze. How is this possible? She stepped closer. The pendant around her neck suddenly felt warm. Without thinking, she reached toward the stone. The moment her fingers touched the ancient carving, a deep rumble shook the cave. Dust rained from the ceiling. Slowly the hidden doorway slid open. A cold breath escaped from the darkness beyond. Inside waited a forgotten chamber untouched by time. Ancient banners still hung upon cracked walls. Broken statues guarded a circular stone table. At its center rested a beautifully crafted wooden chest covered in silver carvings. Lyra approached carefully. Her hands trembled as she lifted the ancient lid. Inside lay a rolled map drawn upon aged parchment. Beside it rested a delicate silver crown unlike anything she had ever seen. The moment she touched the crown, strange images flooded her mind. A woman wearing the same crown smiled as she held a newborn baby wrapped in green cloth. Soldiers burst into a burning palace. Someone screamed. A loyal maid fled through secret tunnels, carrying the child into the freezing night. Then everything vanished. Lyra stumbled backward, gasping for breath. The crown slipped from her fingers. Kale immediately moved beside her. His nose caught the familiar scent of the royal relic. His heart pounded. Only one family had ever worn that crown, the lunar bloodline. Before either of them could understand what they had discovered, another strange thing happened. A soft silver light appeared beneath the sleeve covering Lyra's left arm. She slowly pulled the fabric back. A beautiful crescent-shaped birthmark that had always been pale against her skin now glowed with quiet light. Neither of them spoke. Neither understood why the mark had awakened. But far away inside Moonfang Castle, the false king suddenly felt a sharp pain spread across his chest. An old prophecy he had spent years trying to erase had just begun to come true. And hidden within the ancient chamber beneath the mountain, one forgotten truth was finally beginning to awaken. For a long moment, neither Lyra nor the great silver wolf moved. The hidden chamber seemed frozen outside the reach of time. Dust floated gently through the cold air, while the old fire from the cave entrance sent faint light dancing across broken pillars and faded royal banners. The glowing mark on Lyra's arm slowly faded until it became only a pale crescent once again. Yet the warmth beneath her skin refused to disappear. It felt as though something that had slept for years had finally opened its eyes. Lyra looked down at the ancient silver crown resting inside the wooden chest. Every instinct told her to walk away. Every heartbeat pulled her closer. She whispered softly, "Who were you?" The question was meant for the unknown queen she had seen in the strange vision. The empty chamber answered only with silence. Kale stood beside her. His powerful body remained still, but inside his mind countless memories collided together. Even without sight, he knew the scent of the relic before them. Every Alpha King had been taught the history of the lunar bloodline. Long before Moonfang Kingdom existed, there had been one royal family chosen by the moon goddess herself. Their blood united every wolf kingdom. Their queens carried the ancient crescent mark upon their skin. That bloodline had been erased 24 years earlier, or so everyone believed. Kale slowly turned his head toward Lyra. The impossible truth was standing beside him. Before either of them could gather another thought, a quiet sound echoed through the chamber. Footsteps. Not rushing. Not hiding. Steady. Confident. Lyra quickly picked up a burning branch from the fire outside and held it before her. Who is there? The footsteps stopped. Then a calm woman's voice answered from the darkness. Someone who has searched for you almost her entire life. A young woman stepped into the light. Snow covered the shoulders of her dark traveling cloak. Her long black hair fell across one side of her face, while tired amber eyes studied Lyra with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The giant silver wolf immediately moved between the stranger and Lyra. His growl rolled through the chamber. The woman slowly raised both hands. I came alone. I have no weapon. I am not your enemy. Lyra refused to lower the burning branch. Then tell me your name. The stranger smiled gently. My name is Celine. The smile disappeared almost immediately. And I carried you in my arms on the night your kingdom burned. Lyra felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. What did you say? Celine took one careful step forward. 24 years ago, soldiers attacked the lunar palace before sunrise. They slaughtered everyone who stood between them and the throne. Your mother knew they were coming. She placed you in my arms and ordered me to run, no matter what happened behind me. Tears slowly filled her eyes. I obeyed. I hated myself for surviving, but I obeyed. Lyra stared at her without speaking. Every word sounded impossible, yet every word somehow felt true. Celine reached into her cloak and carefully removed a small bundle wrapped in faded blue cloth. Inside rested a tiny silver bracelet no larger than a newborn's wrist. The inside carried 2 carefully carved words. Lyra Aurelia. Lyra's breath caught. No one had ever called her by that second name. Not once. How do you know that? Because I watched your mother place that bracelet upon your wrist the day you were born. Silence filled the ancient chamber. Cale listened to every word. His heart grew heavier with every passing moment. The healer who had rescued him was not simply a kind woman. She was the rightful queen of the oldest royal bloodline. Celine slowly looked toward the great silver wolf. She frowned. There is another truth here. When you have not spoken aloud, the wolf remained silent. She studied him for another moment. Then her eyes widened. No, it cannot be. She took another slow step. Only one wolf carries that scent. Only one alpha wore the royal oils of Moonfong Palace. Her voice became little more than a whisper. Your Majesty. Lyra looked from Celine to the wolf. What is she talking about? The wolf remained perfectly still. His secret had survived this long. Yet every passing hour made it harder to hide. Before anyone could speak, another sound echoed from outside the cave. Metal striking stone. Then voices. Search every tunnel. Do not leave until you find them. Royal soldiers. They had reached the mountain. Celine hurried toward the cave entrance before looking back. There are too many. You cannot stay here. Lyra quickly closed the ancient chest and lifted the heavy map into her arms. Where do we go? Celine pointed toward the deepest corner of the chamber. There is another passage beneath the old shrine. Only members of the lunar court knew it existed. Together they hurried toward the hidden tunnel. The narrow path twisted deep beneath the mountain, where fresh air drifted through unseen cracks above. The journey felt endless. Sometimes the passage narrowed so tightly that Lyra had to turn sideways to continue. Sometimes it opened into wide underground halls where forgotten statues watched them pass. Hours later, faint daylight appeared ahead. The tunnel opened high above a frozen valley untouched by villages or roads. Far below stretched the ruins of an abandoned temple surrounded by towering cliffs. Celine smiled for the first time. They will never think to search here. The 4 of them began descending the narrow mountain path. Halfway down, Cale suddenly stopped. His ears lifted. His entire body became rigid. He had heard something no one else noticed. A heartbeat. Strong. Disciplined. Not an ordinary soldier. Someone trained. Someone dangerous. The wind shifted. A familiar scent reached him. Poison. The same poison that had stolen his sight. His muscles tightened. Only one man carried that scent every day. Darius. No, not Darius himself. Someone who had stood beside him for years. One of the traders. Hidden across the valley, a cloaked rider quietly watched through the branches of a dead pine. He lowered a polished spyglass. A cold smile crossed his face. So the rumors were true. The Alpha King still lived. and the lost princess had finally been found. He pulled a trained black raven from beneath his cloak and tied a small message to its leg. The bird disappeared into the gray winter sky, flying toward Moonfang Castle. Far away, Darius Voss stood alone inside the royal throne room, staring through a tall window. The black raven landed upon the stone railing. He calmly untied the message. His smile slowly returned. He read the words twice before crushing the paper inside his fist. Find the princess. Kill anyone protecting her. Bring the silver wolf to me alive. He looked toward the frozen mountains, stretching beyond the kingdom. You have hidden long enough, Kale. This time I will bury both your crown and your future forever. At that same moment, deep within the abandoned temple, Lyra placed the ancient silver crown upon the stone altar, only to examine it more closely. The instant the crown touched the altar, a powerful wave spread through the ruins. Kale staggered backward. Pain shot through his entire body. His blind eyes suddenly burned with unbearable heat. He threw back his head as a fierce roar echoed across the mountains. The darkness that had imprisoned him for months began to crack. And for the first time since the betrayal inside Moonfang Palace, a faint silver light pierced the endless night behind his eyes. The roar echoed across the abandoned temple and rolled through the frozen valley like thunder trapped beneath the mountains. Snow slid from ancient stone walls and scattered into the wind. Lyra rushed toward the giant silver wolf as he staggered backward. His powerful body shook beneath waves of pain that seemed to rise from somewhere far deeper than any wound upon his flesh. His breathing became heavy. His claws dug into the frozen ground until cracks spread beneath them. Lyra dropped beside him without hesitation. Stay with me, please. Her hands gently rested against the thick silver fur covering his neck. She had no idea what was happening. The herbs she carried could heal poison and broken bones, but nothing had prepared her for the strange change unfolding before her eyes. The wolf slowly lifted his head. For the first time in many months, a faint shimmer of silver light appeared inside his clouded eyes. Not clear, not complete, but enough to separate darkness from light. Kale blinked several times. Blurry shapes slowly emerged before him like shadows rising through thick morning fog. He could not see details. He could not recognize faces. Yet he saw movement. He saw light dancing across old temple stones. Most importantly, he saw the outline of the woman kneeling beside him. The first face his returning sight searched for belonged to Lyra. A quiet breath escaped him. He had imagined her countless times through nothing more than her voice and scent. Reality was gentler than imagination. Her eyes held kindness even after betrayal. Her face carried exhaustion but not bitterness. The woman who had saved a blind wolf looked exactly like the queen his kingdom had prayed for without ever knowing her name. Lyra noticed the change immediately. You can see something. The wolf slowly nodded. Tears gathered in her eyes. That is wonderful. She smiled with such pure happiness that Kale felt something inside him soften for the first time in years. Celine watched silently from the edge of the temple. She understood that destiny had begun moving faster than any of them expected. Ancient prophecies often awakened one step at a time. The royal crown had restored the first piece of what betrayal had stolen from the Alpha King. But greater trials still waited ahead. Before anyone could speak, another voice echoed across the ruined hall. So the stories were true after all. Everyone turned. A tall warrior stepped through the broken entrance, carrying neither sword nor shield. Snow rested upon his black cloak, while a silver wolf crest shone across the armor beneath it. Kale froze. Even with blurred vision, he recognized that familiar posture. Rowan Black, his beta general, his oldest friend, the man he had trusted beside him through every battle. Rowan slowly removed the hood covering his head. His eyes never left the wounded wolf. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Rowan quietly lowered himself onto one knee. My king. Silence settled over the ruined temple. Lyra looked from Rowan to the giant wolf beside her. Confusion spread across her face. King. Rowan lifted his head. There has only ever been one wolf worthy of that title. He looked directly at Lyra. The beast you rescued is no ordinary wolf. He is Kaledraven, the true Alpha King of Moonfang. The words struck Lyra harder than any weapon. She slowly turned toward the silver wolf. Every memory rushed through her mind. The hunters calling him a monster. His silent loyalty. The way he had stood between her and danger again and again. Her voice became little more than a whisper. "You are the Alpha King." Cale remained still. There was no point hiding the truth any longer. Slowly he stepped away from her. His breathing deepened. Power gathered beneath his scarred body. Muscles shifted. Bones cracked. Silver fur withdrew beneath skin. The great wolf disappeared. Standing where he had been only moments before was a tall man with long silver hair falling across broad shoulders. A faint scar crossed his left eyebrow. Fresh wounds still covered his body, and exhaustion lined his face, yet nothing could hide the quiet authority surrounding him. Lyra forgot to breathe. The man before her was every bit as powerful as the legends claimed. Yet the eyes looking back at her carried gratitude instead of cruelty. Cale spoke for the first time. His voice was deep but calm. "My name is Cale Draven. Everything they told you about me was not true." Lyra searched his face. "You could have told me." He lowered his eyes. "I wanted to. Every day. But until I knew who had betrayed me, I could trust no one with my name." His words carried no excuse. Only regret. Lyra remained silent for several heartbeats before speaking again. "Then why did you stay? You were free to leave after your wounds healed." Cale looked directly into her emerald eyes. "Because you were the first person who saw a wounded soul instead of a monster." No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to fall silent. Celine quietly turned away, allowing them a moment neither had expected. Rowan stepped forward after a respectful pause. "Your Majesty, time is against us. I have spent months searching every kingdom for you. Darius now controls the royal council. Half the generals serve him through fear. The other half believe you are dead." Cale nodded slowly. "How many remain loyal?" Rowan answered honestly. "Not enough to win a war, but enough to begin one." Cale walked toward the center of the ruined temple. His movements remained slow because of his injuries, but the king who had disappeared months ago had begun returning with every step. "Then we gather every loyal pack, every forgotten warrior, every family Darius has broken. We take back what belongs to this kingdom." Rowan smiled for the first time. "That is the Alpha I remember." Over the following days, the abandoned temple transformed into a hidden refuge. Loyal messengers arrived under the cover of darkness. Old captains who had escaped the royal purge returned one by one. Wolves from distant mountain packs quietly pledged themselves to Cale once more. No banners flew. No horns announced their arrival. Only whispered promises filled the ancient halls. Lyra watched everything with growing disbelief. The blind wolf she had nursed beside her fireplace now stood among warriors who bowed their heads the moment he entered a room. Yet despite his growing strength, Cale never allowed anyone else to treat his wounds. Every evening, he still sat quietly while Lyra changed the bandages wrapped around his injured leg. One night, as she finished replacing the last cloth, she noticed him watching her. "You should be resting." He smiled faintly. "Kings are not given much time for rest." She looked down. "Neither are healers." For a brief moment, both of them laughed. The sound felt strangely precious after so much sorrow. Days later, Celine found Lyra standing alone outside the temple watching snow drift across the valley. "You look troubled." Lyra hesitated before answering. "Everything has changed. I thought I was only a village healer. Now everyone says I am a princess. I rescued a wolf who became a king. Nothing feels real anymore." Celine gently placed a hand upon her shoulder. "Sometimes destiny arrives wearing the face of disaster." Lyra smiled sadly. "I only hope I am strong enough." Before Celine could answer, she suddenly noticed Lyra pressing a hand against her stomach. "Are you hurt?" Lyra slowly shook her head. "No. I have simply felt strange these past few mornings. Dizzy. Tired. Food smells different." Celine looked at her carefully. A quiet understanding crossed her face. She reached for Lyra's wrist and gently checked her pulse. Then she smiled, not with surprise, with certainty. She looked into Lyra's eyes and whispered words that changed everything. "You are carrying new life." Lyra stood completely still. The frozen wind continued moving across the mountains, but she heard nothing beyond those 4 words. Far away inside the ruined temple, Cale suddenly looked toward the valley, as though some unseen bond had whispered that fate had taken another unexpected turn. Neither of them knew that the child growing silently beneath Lyra's heart would soon become the most hunted life in every wolf kingdom. The world seemed to stand still after Celine revealed the truth. Lyra remained beneath the pale winter sky with one trembling hand resting gently over her stomach. She had faced hunters without fear. She had walked through endless forests alone. She had survived rejection before an entire village. Yet nothing had prepared her for the quiet miracle growing inside her. A new heartbeat now lived beneath her own. Small, invisible, precious. It was a life that had done nothing wrong, and yet it already carried the weight of 2 ancient bloodlines. Celine watched her with gentle eyes. "You do not have to be afraid." Lyra smiled faintly, but her voice carried uncertainty. "I am not afraid for myself. I am afraid for this child. Every person searching for me will one day search for my baby." Celine stepped closer. "Then we make certain they never find either of you." Inside the temple, Kale met with Rowan and the remaining loyal captains. An old map covered the stone table before them. Small carved markers represented villages that still remained faithful to the true Alpha King. Others marked the lands now controlled by Darius. Every report brought the same grim news. More soldiers, more checkpoints, more executions. The false king had tightened his grip upon every road leading toward Moonfong Castle. Rowan looked across the map. "Darius knows someone is gathering the old packs. He has begun arresting entire families simply because they once served you." Kale closed his eyes for a brief moment. "How many?" "Too many. Villages are burning. Children are being taken as prisoners. Anyone who refuses to swear loyalty disappears before sunrise." Silence settled across the chamber. Kale slowly placed both hands upon the ancient table. "This ends. Not next month. Not next season. Soon. The kingdom has suffered long enough." One of the older captains looked toward him. "If we attack now, we may lose everything." Kale answered without raising his voice. "If we wait longer, we will have nothing left to save." Outside the meeting hall, Lyra quietly listened from the stone corridor. She understood why Kale wished to fight. Every passing day cost innocent lives. Yet she also knew something he did not. The life growing inside her changed every decision from this moment forward. That evening, she finally gathered the courage to speak with him. She found Kale standing alone beneath the broken roof of the temple, watching snow drift across the valley below. His sight had continued improving each day, although distant shapes still remained blurred. He heard her footsteps long before she reached him. "You should be resting." She smiled softly. "You always say that." He turned toward her. "Because you never do." For a few quiet moments neither spoke. The silence between them no longer felt uncomfortable. It had become peaceful. Lyra slowly looked toward the mountains. "There is something I must tell you." Kale immediately noticed the seriousness in her voice. "What is it?" She placed one hand over her stomach. "Celine examined me today." His expression changed. "Are you ill?" She gently shook her head. "No." Then tears slowly filled her emerald eyes. "I am carrying a child." The words settled between them like falling snow. Kale stood completely still. He did not speak. He did not breathe. His eyes slowly lowered toward her trembling hand. A child. His child. The future he had believed betrayal had stolen forever suddenly stood before him. He took one careful step closer. "May I?" Lyra quietly nodded. His large, scarred hand rested gently over hers. Beneath his palm he felt nothing yet. The child was still too small. Even so, his heart tightened with a feeling stronger than any victory he had ever known. His voice became almost a whisper. "I will protect both of you, even if I must stand against every kingdom." Lyra looked into his gray eyes. "I know." Far away inside Moonfong Castle, another messenger knelt before Darius. "My king, our spies confirm the princess travels beside the silver wolf." Darius smiled coldly. "And the Alpha? Has he revealed himself?" "Yes." The smile widened. "Excellent." He finally stepped into the open, exactly as I hoped. Darius slowly walked toward a locked iron chest standing beside the throne. He unlocked it and lifted the lid. Inside rested a small crystal sphere, glowing with faint silver light. The royal blood compass, an ancient relic created to track members of the lunar bloodline. For years it had remained dark. Now a thin silver thread appeared inside the crystal, pointing steadily toward the northern mountains. Darius whispered quietly, "You cannot hide forever, little princess." 2 days later, Kale decided the time had come to move. The abandoned temple had become too dangerous. Loyal scouts reported increasing numbers of enemy patrols surrounding the valley. Every hour they delayed gave Darius more time to tighten his trap. Before sunrise, the small group quietly left the ruins. Snow continued falling as they crossed frozen rivers and climbed narrow mountain trails where only wild goats normally traveled. For a while the journey remained peaceful. Too peaceful. Cale suddenly stopped walking. His expression hardened. Rowan immediately noticed. "What is it?" Cale listened carefully. No birds. No wind. Nothing. The valley is too quiet. Before anyone could react, a loud horn echoed from both sides of the mountain. Archers. Hundreds of them. Dark-cloaked soldiers emerged from hidden ledges above the trail. Steel flashed beneath the morning light. A familiar voice thundered across the cliffs. "Drop your weapons." The travelers looked upward. Standing high upon a rocky ledge waited Commander Varric. The very officer who had served beside Darius during the night Cale was poisoned. His cruel smile had not changed. "You have nowhere left to run." Cale quietly stepped in front of Lyra. Rowan moved beside him. The loyal warriors formed a protective circle. Varric slowly raised one hand. "Alive. I want the Alpha alive. Kill everyone else." The first wave of arrows darkened the sky. Cale roared. His body shifted into his great silver wolf once again. Rowan transformed beside him. The narrow mountain path erupted into chaos. Steel clashed. Wolves leaped through falling snow. Men shouted. The battle became too fierce to count. Lyra stayed close behind the warriors until a second group of enemy soldiers climbed onto the trail from behind. They had been surrounded. Celine grabbed Lyra's arm. "We have to leave. There is no other choice." Before they could escape, 3 soldiers blocked the path. Varric himself walked between them with a victorious smile. He looked directly at Lyra. "The princess comes with me." Cale saw them. His heart froze. He fought through wave after wave of enemies, but every step forward brought 3 more soldiers between them. Lyra cried out his name. "Cale!" He lunged toward her. Too late. A heavy iron net crashed over him from above. Chains forged with silver tightened around his powerful body. He struggled with every ounce of strength, but the enchanted chains refused to break. Varric placed a blade gently against Lyra's throat. One more step. She dies. Everything stopped. Cale slowly lowered his head. For the first time since reclaiming his strength, the Alpha King surrendered. Not because he had been defeated, because the woman carrying his child mattered more than his freedom. Varric smiled with cruel satisfaction. "Take them!" As enemy soldiers dragged Cale away in heavy chains and forced Lyra toward the waiting wagons, she secretly pressed one small object into Celine's hand without anyone noticing. It was the ancient silver bracelet bearing her true name. Celine understood immediately. Protect the child, no matter what happens. She disappeared into the snow before the soldiers saw her. Hours later, as darkness covered the mountains, the prison convoy disappeared toward Moonfong Castle, carrying the captured Alpha King and the lost princess. Neither of them knew that before another sunrise, destiny would separate them in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. By the time the prison convoy reached Moonfong Castle, the first light of dawn had disappeared behind heavy gray clouds. The fortress rose above the frozen cliffs like a giant carved from black stone. Its towering walls had once protected the kingdom from invading armies. Now they imprisoned its rightful rulers. Iron gates slowly opened with a deep groan, and hundreds of armed soldiers lined the road as the chained prisoners entered the courtyard. Cale walked in silence. Heavy silver chains wrapped around his wrists and chest. Every step burned against his skin because the enchanted metal weakened the power of every alpha. Even so, he kept his head high. Kings could lose battles. They could lose kingdoms. They could even lose freedom. But they could never surrender their dignity. A few steps behind him, Lyra was forced forward by 2 guards. Her hands were tied, but her spirit remained untouched. She looked toward Cale only once. He answered with a small nod. "Stay strong." No words were needed. Their hearts understood each other. High above them, Darius Voss stood upon the palace balcony, wearing a magnificent black cloak trimmed with silver fur. From a distance, he looked every bit the noble king the people believed him to be. Only those who truly knew him understood the darkness hidden behind his calm smile. He slowly descended the grand staircase until he stood only a few feet away from Cale. For a long moment, he simply looked at the man he had once called brother. Then he smiled. "Welcome home." Kale answered with quiet strength. This was never your home. It still belongs to the people you betrayed. Darius laughed softly. You always believed loyalty was enough. That was your greatest weakness. Kale stepped forward, despite the chains pulling against him. No. My greatest weakness was trusting you. For the first time the smile faded from Darius's face. He leaned closer. And now you will watch everything you love disappear. He turned toward the guards. Take the Alpha to the lower dungeon. Lock him beneath the old prison. No light. No visitors. No mercy. The guards immediately dragged Kale toward the underground cells. Before disappearing beyond the heavy doors, he looked back once. His eyes found Lyra. She stood perfectly still. She did not cry. She simply placed one hand gently over her stomach. It was enough. Kale understood. He disappeared into the darkness, carrying one promise inside his heart. He would return. No matter the cost. Lyra was taken to a different part of the castle. Instead of a prison cell, she was locked inside a beautifully furnished chamber overlooking the frozen valley. Rich curtains covered the windows. A warm fire burned inside the stone fireplace. Fresh food rested upon a polished wooden table. The room looked like luxury. It was still a prison. Several hours later the door opened. Darius entered alone. He walked slowly across the room while studying every detail of Lyra's face. At last, the lost princess. Lyra refused to lower her eyes. You murdered my family. His expression remained calm. History is written by whoever survives. You should remember that. She answered without fear. The truth survives longer than lies. He smiled again. You sound exactly like your mother. That is unfortunate. Lyra felt anger rise inside her chest. Why am I here? Darius stopped before the window. Because you are valuable. Your blood can unite every wolf kingdom. If I marry you, the people will never question my crown again. Lyra looked at him with disgust. I would rather die. His voice became colder. That can also be arranged. He turned toward the door. Tomorrow the kingdom will witness your public trial. You will confess that Kale kidnapped you. You will declare me the rightful king. Refuse. And the Alpha dies before sunset. The door closed behind him. Silence returned. Lyra slowly sank into a chair. For the first time since leaving the village, she allowed tears to fall. Not because she feared death. Because she feared failing the people who still believed justice was possible. Deep beneath the castle, Kale sat alone inside a narrow stone cell. Cold water dripped from the ceiling. Thick chains bound him to the wall. Hours passed. Then footsteps echoed through the corridor. Kale slowly lifted his head. A hooded guard approached carrying a lantern. When the man reached the cell, he quietly removed his hood. Rowan. Kale's eyes widened. How? Rowan smiled faintly. Not every soldier inside this castle serves Darius willingly. Several still remember who their true king is. He quickly unlocked one of the heavy chains. We have little time. Kale shook his head. Not yet. Rowan frowned. We may never get another chance. Kale looked directly at him. If I escape alone, Darius will execute Lyra before sunrise. We leave together. Or not at all. Rowan understood. He quietly locked the chain again. Tomorrow there will be a public trial in the royal courtyard. Every noble family will attend. So will the commanders who betrayed you. Kale's gray eyes hardened. Good. Then tomorrow everyone will learn the truth. Before leaving, Rowan slipped a small iron key beneath a loose stone inside the cell floor. He spoke quietly. When the bell rings 3 times, be ready. The next morning the entire kingdom gathered inside the vast royal courtyard. Thousands of people filled the stone terraces. Nobles stood beneath colorful banners. Villagers crowded together hoping to witness justice. None of them realized they were about to witness history. Lyra was led onto the raised platform wearing simple white clothing instead of royal robes. Heavy silence covered the crowd. Moments later, Kale was brought forward in chains. Gasps spread through the people. Many believed the true Alpha had died months ago. Others stared in disbelief. Darius raised both hands. Today we end the lies that have poisoned our kingdom. He pointed toward Lyra. Speak. Tell your people the truth. Lyra slowly stepped forward. She looked across the sea of faces. Fear. Hope. Confusion. She drew one deep breath, then spoke with a voice clear enough for every soul to hear. The true liar stands behind me. The crowd erupted into whispers. Darius's smile disappeared. Lyra continued. Chael Draven never abandoned this kingdom. He was poisoned by the man who now wears his crown. That man murdered innocent families. He burned the lunar palace. He hunted children. He betrayed his own king. Every word struck like thunder. The crowd began shouting. Nobles looked toward one another in shock. Darius roared, "Enough! Archers, ready your bows!" Before the soldiers could obey, a deep horn echoed beyond the castle walls. Once, twice, 3 times, every loyal warrior hidden across the kingdom answered with their own horns. The sound rolled across the mountains. Castle gates burst open. Rowan led hundreds of loyal wolves into the courtyard. Their battle cries shook the ancient walls. At the same moment, Chael quietly reached beneath the loose stone hidden inside his chains. His fingers closed around the small iron key. The lock clicked open. Silver chains crashed onto the platform. The courtyard fell silent. Chael slowly straightened to his full height. His gray eyes burned with quiet fury. He looked directly at Darius. "Your reign ends today." Before anyone could move, a brilliant silver light spread across Lyra's crescent birthmark. The ancient power sleeping inside her blood finally answered the call of the true throne. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the woman they once believed was nothing more than a forgotten healer stepped forward with the calm strength of a born queen. And above the battlefield, hidden among the highest towers, a tiny infant cried for the very first time. No one below knew where the child had come from. No one except one frightened servant carrying a small wooden cradle through the secret passages beneath the castle. The cry of battle swallowed the royal courtyard. Steel rang against steel while frightened horses reared across the frozen stone. Loyal warriors rushed through the broken castle gates beside Rowan and drove deep into the ranks of Darius' soldiers. Snow mixed with dust as the ancient fortress shook beneath the weight of a kingdom finally refusing to live in fear. Above them, dark clouds gathered across the winter sky, as though even the heavens had come to witness the final judgment. Chael stood at the center of the courtyard with the broken silver chains lying at his feet. Months of betrayal, months of pain, months of exile had all led to the single moment. Across from him, Darius slowly drew the black sword that had once belonged to the Alpha King himself. He smiled with false confidence, but the certainty inside his eyes had begun to fade. "You should have stayed hidden," Chael answered calmly, "and you should have remembered that stolen crowns never remain upon stolen heads forever." Without another word, both men moved. Their swords collided with a force that echoed through the entire castle. Sparks burst into the freezing air. Darius attacked with speed and anger while Chael fought with patience born from years of experience. Every strike carried the memory of betrayal. Every block carried the promise he had made to Lyra beneath the silent mountains. Nearby, Rowan led the loyal warriors against the royal guards who still defended the false king. More soldiers began throwing down their weapons as the truth spread through the crowd. They had followed Darius because they believed Chael had abandoned them. Now they watched the true Alpha fighting before their eyes. One by one they changed sides. The balance of the battle slowly shifted. High upon the platform, Lyra remained surrounded by a handful of frightened archers. The silver light beneath her skin continued growing brighter. The ancient mark upon her arm no longer looked like an ordinary birthmark. It shone with the quiet dignity of royal blood awakening after years of silence. One young archer lowered his bow. "She is the princess." Another slowly stepped back. "I cannot fight against the lunar bloodline." Within moments, every bow aimed at Lyra fell toward the ground. She stepped down from the platform and walked across the battlefield without fear. Warriors moved aside as she passed. Some bowed their heads without even realizing they had done so. At the far end of the courtyard, Celine suddenly appeared from one of the hidden castle passages. Her cloak was torn and snow covered her shoulders. She searched desperately through the chaos until she found Lyra. "Come with me. There is something you must see." Lyra followed without hesitation. Together, they hurried through narrow stone corridors hidden behind the old throne hall. Dust covered the forgotten passageways where only servants once walked. At the end of the tunnel, an elderly woman waited beside a wooden cradle. Her silver hair framed a tired face filled with relief. When she saw Lyra, tears immediately filled her eyes. "You truly came." The old servant gently lifted the tiny bundle resting inside the cradle. Wrapped in soft white blankets, lay a newborn child sleeping peacefully despite the battle shaking the castle above. Lyra stared in confusion. Whose baby is this? The old woman smiled through tears. Yours. The world seemed to stop. Lyra slowly shook her head. That cannot be. I have only recently learned that I am carrying a child. The woman nodded gently. Yes. And this child is not from today. He was hidden from history. Lyra looked toward Celine. Neither woman spoke. The old servant finally revealed the truth. On the night your mother fled the palace, she did not carry only you. She carried twins, a prince and a princess. The soldiers found the prince before sunrise and believed they had destroyed the final royal heir. But they did not kill him. I stole him away before anyone noticed. I raised him in secret beneath this castle for 24 years. Lyra's eyes widened. Where is he? The old woman smiled softly. He grew into the man standing above us, now risking everything for his people. Your twin brother, Caldraven. Silence filled the hidden chamber. Lyra could not breathe. The impossible truth echoed through her heart. She and Cale were not only united by destiny. They had both survived the same massacre as children. They had both been hidden under different names. They had both spent their lives searching for the family they believed had vanished forever. The old woman gently laughed. The stories were changed to protect both of you. Moonfang adopted the prince. The forest protected the princess. The prophecy was never about two kingdoms joining through marriage. It was about two lost heirs standing together to restore peace. At that exact moment, a deep roar echoed through the castle. Cale had defeated Darius. Lyra rushed back toward the courtyard with Celine beside her. The battle had ended. Broken weapons covered the frozen stone. The surviving soldiers knelt before Cale while Darius lay defeated at the foot of the throne steps. His sword rested beyond his reach. His crown had fallen into the snow. Cale looked down at the man who had destroyed so many lives. Darius laughed weakly. Kill me! Finish it! Cale slowly picked up the fallen crown. Then he looked toward the gathered people. A true king does not build peace through revenge. He placed the broken crown upon the ground. Darius Voss, for your crimes against this kingdom, for murdering innocent families, for betraying your alpha, for destroying the lunar palace, you will face judgment before the people you tried to silence. The crowd erupted into cheers. Justice had finally defeated fear. Moments later, Lyra stepped into the center of the courtyard. Every eye turned toward her. Cale smiled quietly. You came back. She nodded. Always. He gently took her hand before facing the people. Today this kingdom does not gain rulers. It regains hope. Rowan brought forward the ancient silver crown recovered from the hidden temple. Cale accepted it with both hands. Instead of placing it upon his own head, he turned toward Lyra. This crown belonged to your mother. It belongs to you. Slowly, he placed the crown upon her head. The moment it touched her hair, sunlight finally broke through the dark clouds for the first time in many months. Golden light poured across the courtyard. The people knelt as one, not because they were ordered, because they believed. Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she looked across the countless faces. The frightened healer who had once lived alone inside a small forest cabin was gone. Before them stood the true queen. Just then the old servant entered the courtyard, carrying the small wooden cradle. Everyone turned toward the sleeping infant wrapped inside soft white blankets. The baby suddenly opened bright silver eyes. A tiny crescent mark slowly appeared upon the child's wrist. An ancient priest stepped forward with wonder shining across his face. The prophecy was true. The royal blood has returned. The kingdoms are united once more. Cale slipped his hand gently into Lyra's. Together they looked toward the peaceful valley stretching beyond the castle walls, where fresh snow sparkled beneath the morning sun. For the first time in countless years, no cries of war echoed across the mountains. Only hope, and the promise that the age of fear had finally come to an end.